Vice Mayor Ben Cooper, Councilmember Victor Peterson, Councilmember Eddie Cook. We welcome you here. And I do, just for a moment, a little bit of Gilbert marketing. If we could go to the next slide. Street of Dreams. This might be a little bit more for the adults, but you can take family members. Just started. House of Refuge is a local nonprofit receiving all benefits, and this is where there are 5 homes that are on display in Central Gilbert that individuals from all over the state of Arizona will be coming to see, and you can see them just in our backyard. Street of Dreams is open Wednesdays through Sundays, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Germain between Greenfield and Higley. Next slide. That's a lot of activities coming up, but these are family activities that you can go out to our town website and see these activities on the calendar. I won't go through a lot of them, but just glancing down, there's festivals, there's parades. One thing I do mention, it's the first time we've done this on the day of the Gilbert Days Parade on Saturday, November 23rd. After the parade, you can come down here to Town Hall, and outside is a big festival, and it's called the Red, White, and Blue Festival. And at the end, I haven't seen this yet, but I've been told like where we get excited for fireworks. At the end of the night is a laser show that has been described as equivalent to the best fireworks show we've ever seen. So put that on your calendars and come on down and enjoy. I'll also have this at the end of our Student Citizen of the Month. We'll put this back up so you can see it, but it's on the website. Next slide. This is our purpose for being here. To begin with, all of you who received a letter, our Student Citizens of the Month, would you please stand? And remain standing for just a minute. We're going to do some more clapping, but while you're standing, I would like to talk to each one of you individually, give the reasons why your school, it might have been your teacher, might have been your principal, might have been someone seeing you, saw something that you're doing. And tonight you're representing the finest of Gilbert. And if you don't know what you did, just know that someone watched you, and you're a great example, and you're great citizens. And so we want to emulate you too, and encourage all of Gilbert to keep our eyes on you. So congratulations and thank you. You may be seated. We have here some teachers, principals, administrators. Would you please stand? And we thank you because this is the lifeblood of Gilbert, those who are standing. Thank you. We will have 3 different groups, and as each group is announced, we'll have you come down, stand behind me, and then individually you'll come up one at a time. When you come up here, we'll have the plaque for you or the certificate, and you can show it, and we'll take a picture of you. The picture will be on display. And there's some details, and there are cards in the back table that describe where you can come and see these pictures. And if you're here to take your own picture, just come right up. Feel free to do so. We'll make sure you get the picture taken, and then we'll be doing a group picture with the 3 groups at the end of each group. And we thank you for being here. This is one of the great events each month. And to those who stood already, thank you for coming. We appreciate you. At this time, Group 1, if your elementary school has the first initial or first letter in your elementary school from A to J, I'd like you to come down now and stand right behind me. And that might be the Ashland Ranch Elementary School down to the Islands Elementary School. So come on down if you're in elementary school, A to J. And Councilmember Daniels, she has that beautiful smile, that wonderful voice, and she will be the one reading the names. And we'll have the first name read, and then we'll do a practice round, and then everyone will see how we do this.
Perfect. Thanks, Mayor. From Ashland Ranch Elementary, Logan Kelly. From Bios Christian Academy, Aiden Colgan. From Burke Elementary, Alyssa Hogland. From Carroll Ray Ranch Elementary, Brinley Rust. From Coronado Elementary, Lily Lyons. From Finley Farms Elementary, Brody Johnson. From Gateway Point Elementary, Allison Griffith. From Gilbert Elementary, Cole Kempton. From Greenfield Elementary, Landon Pierce. From Highland Park Elementary, Maggie Budge. From Houston Elementary, Jordan Robinson. From Islands Elementary, Michaela Frazier. From Imagine West Gilbert Charter, Orlonzo Gonzalez. And also from Imagine West Gilbert Charter, Oliver Stokowski. Mayor, that concludes Group 1.
We are now going to take a Group 1 picture. We'll invite Group 1 to step forward in this vicinity, and then the whole council will join you for this picture. A little bit closer, right up in here. All right, right about there. Now let's see how well the council smiles. Okay, they're looking good. Please join me in giving Group 1 another big round of applause. Thank you. You may go back to your seats. I think I forgot to mention that all of our Student Citizens of the Month are returning to their seats with a Shop Gilbert bag and some other goodies in there. Is that right? And a copy of the Constitution. Oh, they're wonderful. Group 2, if your elementary school begins with the letter K to Z, please come on down. And that would basically be anyone else in elementary school who we have not yet recognized.
All right, from Mesquite Elementary, Kaylee Ellison. From Neely Traditional Academy, Reese Robert Baldwin. From Oak Tree Elementary, Andrea Mendoza Lopez. From Patterson Elementary, Seth O'Donnell. From Pioneer Elementary, Olivia Boyer. From Playa del Rey Elementary, Delia Molina. From Quartz Hill Elementary, Mia Grace Young. From Settlers Point Elementary, David Murphy. From Sonoma Ranch Elementary, Brianna Serrano. From Spectrum Elementary, Christine Nguyen. From Town Meadows Elementary, Bryn Nielsen. From Val Vista Lakes Elementary, Gabriel Henham. And from Val Vista Academy, Brandon Sees.
We'll invite our group 2 to come forward. We're going to do a picture together and have all the council members join. Right up in this vicinity. Very good. Group 2, another big round of applause. Thank you. Our group 3, if you are in junior high or high school, please come on down.
From Campo Verde High, Austin Childs. From Desert Hills High, Matthew Petty. From Gilbert Early College, Adriana Sanchez. From Gilbert Classical Academy, Hamza Hamid. From Gilbert High, Stetson Marks. From Gilbert Junior High, Preston Oliver. From Greenfield Junior High, Anna Bresadola. From Highland High, Francisca Martinez. From Mesquite High, Stephen Casillas. From Mesquite Junior High, Kiera Abrahamson. From Perry High, Sophia Hoffman.
Jen, are we doing these those down here?
They're done. No, we didn't.
Because there's a couple here.
From South Valley Junior High, Brian LaPierre.
So these, you're saying that we do these?
We don't need them because they were elementary school and there was no extra.
Really?
Isn't it though? I just said his name wrong. It's LaPierre. Although I think I said Brian's name wrong. Brian, did I say your name wrong? I knew it.
Should I let
There's
Brian?
probably more that I said wrong tonight. but
Brian, how do you say that last name?
LaPerriere.
See?
now I know. Thank
And
you,
we'll have Brian lead the way. We're going to do a group 3 pictures, so come forward, please.
Probably more than that one.
Another big round of applause for group 3, and you may be seated. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Brian.
So as we started, our Student Citizens of the Month, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do and for making Gilbert such a great place to live. As I mentioned, these are activities coming up. We invite you to come and join us for these family activities. And for all that you do at this point, you may go home, take 5 minutes and rest, and then do more homework. No, or you may take your family out and shop Gilbert, or do whatever you think makes most sense because you are our Student Citizens of the Month. This officially ends our program, and if you wanted to take a few more pictures, our regular town council meeting will begin in 5 minutes, so you have about 5 minutes where you could come up here and take some more pictures. And thank you again. We appreciate you. I'm looking to see if we have any Boy Scouts here. You got them?
Yep, so they're right there.
Oh, great. Boy Scouts, come on down. Councilmember Taylor, you're way ahead of me. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. We will begin. For those who have attended our Student Citizen of the Month, thank you. And the regular Town Council meeting begins with an invocation and pledge of allegiance. As noted on the agenda, the invocation may be offered by a person of any religion, faith, belief, or non-belief, as well as council members. A list of volunteers is maintained by the town clerk, and interested persons should contact the clerk for further information. The invocation tonight will be offered by Pastor Paul J. Thompson of the Heritage Free Will Baptist Church, after which Councilmember Taylor will introduce one of our scouts to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then after that introduce the rest of the scouts. We invite those who are here at council chambers to please arise.
All right, let's pray. Our Father, we thank you again for another privilege to come here to the Town Council meeting, to stand before you and give you thanks for the town of Gilbert. How we thank you, Lord, that at a time like this, in a world in such as we live, that you've blessed us to be able to live here in the town of Gilbert. We give you thanks, Lord, for our mayor. We give you thanks for our council members. We thank you for a town, Lord, that recognizes you above most. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of feeling always at home here in this town. Pray that you'll bless tonight in the council meeting. I pray that you'll bless our mayor, our council members, and the agenda that they have to follow tonight. I pray that it will just serve to make Gilbert a better town, a town that more honors you, and we'll just praise you for it and thank you for it. In the wonderful name of Christ, amen.
So we're lucky to have a patrol from Troop 483, and Nicholas Oliver will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Mayor, Troop 483 is here tonight, and we'll ask each one of them, including the adult leaders, to just tell us their name, and then since we're in October, tell us what you're dressing up like for Halloween, and we'll give you a copy of the Constitution, and thank you for being here tonight.
My name is J.C. Ballard, and I actually do not have a costume for Halloween, but I have 3 kids, and so they'll be dressing up plenty for me.
My name is Jaden Hammaker, and I'll be dressing up as a nerd.
My name is Tyler Hironaka, and I'm just going to go as a morph suit guy.
My name is Rex Oliver, and I'm going to be Sparky.
My name is Jesse Magana, and I'm going to be a morph suit.
My name is Brigham Depew, and I'm going to be an evil clown.
My name is Sean Shepard, and I'm going to go as myself. That's scary enough.
Mayor, do you have anything else for the Scouts tonight?
Well, I was going to dress up as a Boy Scout on Halloween, but I'm not sure now. But thank you. We appreciate our Boy Scouts, and let's give them a nice big round of applause. Our Deputy Clerk will now conduct the roll call.
Mayor Lewis.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cooper.
Here.
Councilmember Cook.
Here.
Councilmember Daniels.
Here.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember Ray.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Here.
I declare a quorum to be present.
Thank you. We are pleased that we have so many here in council chambers. Earlier in the week, we had an Operation Welcome Home event as we welcomed home one of our Gilbert residents from his military service, and thank you also for participating in that. One of the great things about a public meeting like this is there's also an opportunity for citizens to come and to speak about items not on the agenda. And there is 15 minutes that's allocated for that. And so in preparation, Vice Mayor Cooper was letting me know that the majority are here to speak on one particular topic, and I will be able to talk a little bit about a future meeting that will be tied to that topic. I would invite you, if you're here to talk about the Behavioral Health Center, to possibly be talking together and using your time whatever way makes sense. There's about 15 people to speak, and you'll have about 15 minutes. So that's about 1 minute a person, if that works, or maybe you want one person to be taking 2 of the minutes and the other person not speaking, something like that. But we'll do our very best to make sure you have adequate time. And the other person who is here to speak on a topic not related to that, we'll plan on about 2 minutes for that. Okay, and that's just to give you some preparation time. Before that, we have our presentations and proclamations. Item number 2 on the agenda is a proclamation declaring October 24th, 2013 as Food Day, and that is noted on our record, and there's no representation to receive that. And so we'll move to agenda item number 3, Councilmember Ray, the proclamation on celebrating the Arts Month, please.
We want to welcome and invite Diane and Larry to come forward, please. One of the assignments I get to do is I get to work with the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Board, and so I'm honored and privileged to be able to present them with this proclamation. Once I read a portion of the proclamation, we'll turn the microphone over to each one of these two, and they'll explain what they do at the town of Gilbert, or to help with the town of Gilbert, and also to talk about Tuesday's event. And I will read just the first paragraph of this proclamation. I think it does a great job explaining it. Whereas the power of arts builds bridges and enriches lives in our community and brings people together through creative expression and contributes to the vibrancy of the community, Mayor John Lewis does hereby proclaim October 2013 as Celebrating the Arts Month. I'll pass the microphone down to Diane first, and then to Larry next.
Hi, I'm Diane Fales. I'm the chair of the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Board here in Gilbert. We are promoting arts and culture that will elevate Gilbert and its identity as a cultural leader in the future. And Larry's going to talk about next week.
Thank you. I'm Larry Weitzel, the manager of the Higley Center for the Performing Arts. And this is the 4th annual Mayor's Breakfast with the Arts. This year we're celebrating the town's creation of the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Board, so we're focusing on arts, culture, and how those impact tourism. We have a guest speaker, keynote speaker, Mr. Bob Booker, who's the executive director of the Arizona Commission on the Arts, who's going to talk about the relationship between arts, culture, and tourism. And we're also going to be giving out awards to residents who have made an impact on arts and culture and tourism in the town of Gilbert. So the event is Tuesday morning, October 29th. It's at 7 o'clock for breakfast and networking. At 7:45, we'll start the more formal part of the morning with keynote address, welcome by the mayor, and he acts as a wonderful MC for the event over the last 4 years. We're looking forward to this one as well. And then we'll be handing out awards. It costs $10. Tickets are available on our website, higleyarts.org, and we invite all of you to come and learn about how arts, culture, and tourism really add to the quality of life in the town of Gilbert.
Thank you, Larry and Diane. Let's give one more round of applause for all that they do for the community.
Well, I would like to invite two of our fabulous team members here. Leah, I know you're hiding somewhere, and Heather, can you both come here? We have a proclamation that really exemplifies our wonderful team members and our entire town staff and all the wonderful employees here in the town of Gilbert that serve our citizens and our businesses. So could you please introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your role here with the town of Gilbert?
Heather Wilkie. I'm the Intergovernmental Relations Assistant here and focus on state and regional policy issues.
Leah Hubbard Reinheimer, Gilbert resident, Director of Intergovernmental Relations for the town, also state and policy issues.
Well, thank you both. And they're receiving this award on behalf of the town, so let me just share a little bit about the proclamation. Whereas the citizens of the town of Gilbert rely on the town to experience a high quality of life in our community. Through participation and cooperation, citizens, community leaders, and local businesses and municipal staff can work together to ensure that the services provided by the town of Gilbert can remain exceptional elements of the quality of life in our community. And if I can ask all of you to a round of applause to Heather and Leah and our town employees for the wonderful work for our community. Thank you.
All right, we'd like to invite those that have been asked to participate in item 5 to come down. Pastor Tim, Julie, Victor Peterson, and is Larry Schott here? Not here? Okay, come on up here. You guys have been up here before, so you kind of know what it's like. Today we have the opportunity, like we do every year, to recognize folks who are kind of representatives of many people in Gilbert who have gone the extra mile and who are encouraging people to go the extra mile as we commemorate Extra Mile Day. So I'd like to pass the microphone down the line and ask you each to introduce yourselves and how you may be associated with folks that are going the extra mile, and end up down there with Councilmember Peterson. So here you go.
I'm Pastor Tim Thompson. I'm the co-director of For Our City in Gilbert. And For Our City is an organization that works with local municipalities to partner with businesses and churches and different organizations to go out and to impact the community and to do good. So we are very honored to be a part of this award and proclamation for going the extra mile. And I tell you, being a citizen of Gilbert is easy to drum up volunteers. And but what's not easy is to find a place to go volunteer and service projects to do. And so In that effort, we have stepped into the gap, and we try to provide and bring people out of their silos, out of their respective individual, narrow-minded place of service, and try to provide them with a broader spectrum. And so tomorrow, or Saturday, we're going to be gathering with about 600 to 800 volunteers across the town to go out and to do all sorts of projects that include serving your neighbor, that include beautifying schools, getting the gum off the ground, painting projects. And last year, I think we were able to paint the entire outside of Oak Elementary School in about 3.5 hours because so many volunteers showed up. So what we are desiring to do and endeavoring to do is to make an impact in the community. And Gilbert used to be called Community of Excellence, and I believe that we have excellent citizens here, and we do excellent work. So if you want to join us and be a part of that, you can look up gilbertcan.com, go to gilbertcan.com, and you'll see on there the various service projects that you can be a part of. Many of them are already filled to capacity for Saturday, but we will do this again in April. And so this is Julie Larson, who put a lot of that together.
This is Julie Benson, and that's okay. It's great to be here tonight, and we've had just an incredible feeling that exists among our group at For Our City, trying to connect volunteers with community needs, and it's just been a joy to serve with both Pastor Tim as well as Victor Peterson, our council member, and it's great to be a resident of Gilbert and to just be involved. Thank you.
So I'm here to just make sure they talk about themselves enough. No, they really are wonderful, and I've been so grateful to work with them. And just to recognize, Tim Thompson's been helping to direct the organization from its inception. He's been with us from the beginning. We really appreciate his help. And Julie Benson is more of a recent addition, but she's responsible for our website that you can actually you can sign up automatically. It's managed, it's all tracked. You can find out which, projects still need people, which ones don't. It's been a wonderful contribution, and there's been many others who have helped us. And, as a politician, my motives could be suspect, but these folks are volunteers, and they're inspiring, and I'm grateful to work with them. And so they deserve this recognition. Thank you for all you do. I have another role to play here. Could we get Jeremy Geigel to come up for us for just a minute? Thank you. This is a very important item tonight. I'm grateful to be able to talk about it for just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and summarize the proclamation, and then we're going to let Jeremy talk a little bit about an event that's coming up. And then if you'll hold the applause at the end, that would be great. So whereas the town of Gilbert is a community that seeks to create a healthy and safe environment for our children and families, whereas the proliferation of the internet and other technology has made pornography increasingly available to all individuals of all ages, whereas addiction to pornography prevents, weakens, and damages family relationships, and whereas parents have an important responsibility to protect their children and to provide them with the resources needed to fight against the onslaught of pornography, now therefore we, the Town Council of the Town of Gilbert, Arizona, proclaim the week of October 22nd, 2013 as Families Fighting Pornography Week. And we call upon mothers and fathers within Gilbert to use their best efforts to educate themselves and their families about the dangers of pornography and about the tools that are available to help keep their children and families safe from the destructive consequences of pornography use. And with that, I'll let Jeremy talk about the event coming up.
Thank you. It's an honor to receive this proclamation, and we're grateful for it. The proliferation of pornography is hurting families, it's hurting individuals, it's hurting our community. And so as a member of Arizona Family Council, we're putting on a Families Fighting Pornography Conference coming up on November 2nd. That's a Saturday from 9 till 1 p.m. at the Doubletree Hotel here in Gilbert. We have nationally renowned speakers coming in to help give tools to parents to help protect kids, and there'll be therapists there. There'll be a whole gamut of individuals to address this issue to help our community keep ourselves safe from the destructive effects of pornography in our community. So we're really grateful for this proclamation.
And I have the girls in blue come on up with their coaches. Now this is a good-looking group. No offense to the Boy Scouts that came up earlier. This is the Gilbert Softball All-Stars, ages 10 and 11. And they've done something incredible this year, and I'm going to look to their coaches to tell us a little bit about their season, let us know what they just did, and we have a certificate for each of the girls. So after you're done, if we can pass the mic down and let the girls introduce themselves and what position they play.
My name is Al Vega. I'm the manager of this team.
Angel Alvarez, coach.
Dan Prefak, coach and vice president of Gilbert Softball Little League.
My name is Samantha Gorja, and I'm the best second baseman in the state. My name is Nicole Wittig, and I play center field.
My name is Miranda Alvarez, and I play left field.
My name is Shelby Scheffner, and I play right field.
My name is Caitlin Garcia, and I play center field.
My name is Mia Stankiewicz, and I play shortstop and pitcher.
My name is Dania Cano, and I play first base.
My name is Tatum Ellis, and I play shortstop.
My name is Kenna Prefak, and I play third base and pitcher.
My name is Alyssa Scott, and I'm an all-star pitcher.
My name is Sky Shippey, and I'm the pitcher.
My name is Allie Hall, and I'm the best catcher in the state.
My name is Brooke Vega, and I'm a pitching coach.
My name is Leslie Scott, and I'm a coach.
Ken Scheffner, coach.
Thank you. And are you the mascot? What's your name? Audrina. Thanks, Audrina. It's too cute to pass up over there. Each girl will get their own certificate with their own name on it, but it just says, in recognition of her contribution to the Gilbert Softball Little League All-Stars 10 to 11-year-old team, and for winning the 2013 Softball Little League State Championship in Tucson. We wish to express our pride in your accomplishment and our appreciation for the fine publicity you have brought to our community through your inspired team play. So a round of applause for our Gilbert All-Stars.
Always a pleasure to stand next to All-Stars, so thank you. Another big round of applause. Oh, that's good. Please?
Please. The girls would like to present this to the mayor, who, with open arms, has done our presentation every year, and thank you for being out there and supporting us.
Thank you. We've got some of the best here. I can tell you. You know, we got to play a game right now. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Anything else, Councilmember Daniels? All right, you may be seated. Thank you. Pastor Paul Thompson, please. In just a moment, we will have Pastor Paul, come over here. We'll have a picture taken with the certificate of appreciation. Normally we wouldn't get so personal and talk about age, but Pastor Paul is 84. And at his church, they have designated that term retired. Now we know pastors never retire, but this is an individual who has served Gilbert faithfully for 31 years, comes down as he did tonight, and offers the invocation as a volunteer. We wanted to, in addition to giving you that certificate of appreciation, I wanted to have a picture come up. So that's Pastor Paul just a few years ago, and tell you just a little bit about him as one of our great Gilbert heroes. Pastor Paul Thompson grew up in a family of 11 brothers and sisters during the Depression. From his family, he learned the lifelong skill of sharing, which has impacted so many lives in our community. Pastor Paul joined the Army Air Force when he was 17 and served in Guam during World War II. During a break in service, he came home and met the love of his life. Let's go to that second picture. Marilyn Blackburn from Louisa, Kentucky. They were married in 1948. Settling in the Columbus, Ohio area, Paul and Marilyn pastored several churches. When Paul was 53, he felt called to leave his church of 2,500 members and come to the still rugged Wild West of Gilbert. In 1982, the population of Gilbert was 5,000. With open fields around church land, Paul and Marilyn set out to build a church for the families of our community. Under Pastor Paul's leadership, the Heritage Free Will Baptist Church has now been part of our community for the last 31 years. Pastor Paul has touched thousands of lives in our town, spending endless hours in our hospitals, comforting and encouraging and bringing joy to thousands of school children throughout the years. In spite of a busy schedule, he still remembers to call everyone in his congregation to wish them a happy birthday. Today, at age 84, Pastor Paul looks forward to influencing the next generation as he spreads his joy and energy with his children, 7 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. And as I present to Pastor Paul the official certificate of appreciation, if you could join me in a big round of applause. Vice Mayor Cooper, we move to the next part of our agenda, which Thank you. Let's, Vice Mayor Cooper, let's begin with the one item that was separate. And why don't you announce that individual, and they'll be able to come to the podium. When you come to the podium, you're asked to state your name and, for the record, whether or not you're a Gilbert resident. Please.
Great. We'd first like to call Jim Monroe, please.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Jim Monroe, and my wife Joan and I are Gilbert residents. We're here this evening to speak to you about the East Valley Veterans Parade. The parade has changed some this year. For those of you who have been there in the past, we've always been on Veterans Day. This year, the parade will be on Saturday, November the 9th, the weekend before Veterans Day. Because of that, we are no longer in competition with the Phoenix Parade, and we have had a great increase in entries for the parade this year. We're faced right now with the situation of who do we not allow in the parade as opposed to trying to solicit folks. So this year's event will have some 120 entries, roughly 2,000 people actively participating in the parade. We're expecting spectators in excess of 30,000 and would hope you would all join us. It'll be a great event, again, Saturday, November the 9th on Center Street in Mesa. Begins at 11 a.m. 3 of your council members are going to join us, Councilman Cook, Peterson, and Taylor. I assure you, you'll have a grand time. We'll take very good care of you and return you to Gilbert in one piece. So if you will, please join us on that day. I'm sure you'll enjoy yourself. There's a number of things going on. You'll find a great increase in military participation this year, and it's an excellent opportunity to come out and recognize and show your support for our military veterans, active military, and their family. It's really important to do that, and would hope you would join us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jim. And Jim, I would comment on that. It's on the screen, but as I neglected to read, in the communication from citizens, members of the public may comment on matters within the jurisdiction of the town, but not on the agenda. The council's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Therefore, I make no comment, other than it'll be a great parade. Thank you. Vice Mayor Cooper, as you were looking at the sheets and to help us make sure everyone feels like they had adequate time, it looks like there are 12 that are grouped together that have feelings that are similar, and 4 that are grouped together have feelings similar. So why don't we do the best we can? We'll do the 12 first, and if for some reason, and we'll just start the clock 12 minutes, and Vice Mayor Cooper, if you can just quickly do, as you do so well, the speaker, the person on deck, and they can be sitting near the front rows, and then when the person's done, you can announce the next person. If we get to the 12, or if we get to the 12 minutes and not all 12 have spoken, I think to the council I would just propose to let the others who haven't spoken come up and at least be able to state their name for the record and, you know, give a 10, 15-second comment about why they wanted to speak. Will that work? Okay. Vice Mayor Cooper.
Mayor, first we'll call Lori Lagodny Kendall up, and then on deck will be Kim Shamble, sorry if I'm mispronouncing. In fact, I'll probably mess up quite a few names. I apologize in advance. But those will be the first 2, and then after that, if Christine Accurso could also be prepared, she'll be third.
Hi, I'm Lori Lagodny Kendall. I'm a Gilbert resident. I'm here with Kim Shamble. We are against the hospital going up. We feel like it's unsafe for our community. We have children that live in that area, children that get off buses by themselves in the afternoon. And with access of those people coming in and out, we also have concerns regarding home values. I'm going to cut it really quick since I know there's a short amount of time. Kim?
My name is Kim Chamble. I'm a Gilbert resident. I had a son who did a veterans wheelchair event at Campo Verde High School last year. My kids have been raised in Gilbert, and it's worked for us because we've always felt safe. And Mr. Peterson spoke of happy residents, healthy and safe environments for our families. And I just don't know that that location is really in the best interest of the community. You have a 2.5-mile stretch with 3 hospitals going in, and that's a little ridiculous, I think. And the simple fact of what we are going to be servicing. People need help, and I totally agree with that. And I think that Gilbert could be a good place for it, just not that specific location. Again, the home values and, you know, as the Reverend spoke, it is a great town, and I love it here. I'm from Chicago, and I wouldn't want to raise my kids anywhere else. But I really, really think if you want to raise good kids, you have to have parents that feel safe where we're raising them. Thanks.
Thank you. We could have Christine Accurso and then Kelly Colvin. would be next. So Christine.
Good evening. 6 years ago, our family moved to Gilbert because it's clean, safe, and vibrant from out of state. And we chose Gilbert because there was people caring about people. We chose Spectrum because neighbors have dinner every Friday night on their driveways together. We love living in Spectrum. We believe that mental health is very important, and it's important for our town. We don't think that it's a good idea to put it where it's being proposed by Springstone. We just got used to the idea of having a veterans psychiatric hospital at Val Vista and Pecos, and now we have to get to the, and we support our veterans, so we want that there. I'm very saddened that, unfortunately, the folks at Springstone are not listening because they don't know that Gilbert's about people. And people have voiced their concerns. We voiced our concerns, and we're not being heard. I know there's not much that you can do because of regulations and things, but we elected you to be creative. We elected you to represent us. And I know that we don't want to disrespect any regulations or laws, but we ask that you creatively think about how you can respect all of the residents in Spectrum and the community around us right there, because we don't want it to go in there. We'll help relocate it somewhere else, but we don't want it to go in there. And we would ask those folks here tonight at Springstone to listen, because they may not know. Gilbert is about people caring about people, and you're not listening to the people.
Okay. After Kelly, we'd like to have, after Kelly Colvin here, we'll have Jeff Lasher come up, and then Carrie Hansen can be prepared.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Colvin. I am a Gilbert resident. I live in Spectrum at Val Vista, where my children attend Spectrum Elementary School. For reference, I have worked in the mental health field, social work, including foster care. I have worked in public schools in Arizona. I have a master's in both clinical psych and a master's of school counseling. I have worked and will continue to work with the patients that will be admitted to Springstone Behavioral Health Hospital. I've worked in nonprofit organizations. I've worked in for-profit organizations. My concern with Saguaro Springs Hospital is that it is a for-profit agency. A for-profit agency runs by different rules than a nonprofit agency does. We deserve to know the answers to many questions. Nonprofit agencies are statistically more stable than a roller coaster ride of for-profit mental health hospitals. As a clinician, I have made my client sign a contract stating that they will not come into treatment under the influence. In this case, they had to leave immediately if they came in intoxicated. These clients leave the facility angry. These clients from Springstone will walk out of that facility angry and under the influence. Upon discharge, what outpatient services or community referrals will these patients be given? Will the patients be given transportation services to their final destination after discharge? I truly believe this type of facility should be away from homes, schools, and parks. 80% of the mental health inpatient facilities are next to major hospitals, only 15% in rural areas. Again, while I believe mental health does need to be addressed, an inpatient facility is much needed, Boston Street is in fact not the right location, and Springstone is not the right business to be in this town because of the questions they have not answered on record.
Thank you. Jeff, as I said, after Jeff will be Carrie Hansen, and then Christina Bradley can be prepared.
My name is Jeff Lasher, and I'm a 12-year Gilbert resident with 18 years of running calls in the community. One of the things that we talk about is in NIMBY, not in my backyard. Well, let's look for a different place. We're developing State Route 24. It's got a whole bunch of commercial structure. Have them buy the property out there, zone it, and allow the community to build to them. Like Luke Air Force Base, those people have no argument for the jets that are flying there. They were there first. We were here first. Let them build on State Route 24 so that the community can build to them. If you want to live near a facility like this, go for it. We don't. Second of all, let's assume for a second that this business has integrity, which I think is very questionable at this point. In 3 years from now, they go bankrupt. Then who do we have? We have a company with a perfect facility for at-risk patients with security. We all have no control over who's in there at that point. Game, set, and match. Gilbert loses. And just one last point. I talked to a police officer earlier this morning. I said, you know, how many of your calls are rotate around drug or psych? And he laughed. They all do. It's not very funny to us. We were here. We don't need this in our community. I've run these calls for 18 years. I promise you, you do not want this here. Thank you for your time.
After Carrie, it'll be Christina Bradley and then Matt Fainer.
Is there any way for me to display something?
Yes.
Kurt, if you could help on that screen.
Mayor Lewis and council members, thanks for the opportunity to present to you. My name is Carrie Hansen, and I'm a Gilbert resident. My concern with the Springstone facility has been the location near our Gilbert schools. There are 10 Gilbert schools located within a 2-mile radius of the proposed Springstone site. 4 schools are located within 1 mile of the facility: a daycare, Spectrum Elementary, Ashland Ranch, and American Leadership. If we even have 2 lockdowns per year due to an instance at the Springstone facility, that is a good number of children at risk. Even patients leaving the facility against medical advice are a threat to these 10 schools. This proposed facility isn't only jeopardizing the safety of neighborhoods and businesses, but of thousands of students as well. Let's keep Gilbert in the news as a growing community and not the next location for a tragedy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So after Christina, we'll have Matt Fainer and then Barbara.
I'm taking Barbara's. She
Great.
just sprained her hand.
Okay.
And so I'm going to read really fast.
And we'll have Mark Held, or I think is what it is after that.
Honorable Mayor Lewis, Town Council, and residents, my name is Christina Bradley. I'm here to represent the concerned citizens. I love our town. I'm in favor of mental health, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for taking my calls, questions, and answers. I am completely pleased with how you've cooperated with us and answered. However, we still have so many questions left for Springstone. What are the characteristics of patients from least severe to most, and the percentages each hold? Will there be swing beds locked or not? Are they available to add this facility in making more locked wings after they're open? Is there voluntary admission, then allowing voluntary discharge? With the voluntary discharge, we get AMA, against medical advice. Springstone informed us on October 1st they do not do background checks. What are the number of employees versus patients and their acuity? The safety of those being moved in and out of this facility is a concern as well. The last thing I'd like to address is the new 30,000 pages of procedure protocols from Obamacare. Who's going to assure the outcome of this mental health hospital? None of us really know. Has anybody read? Has anybody asked the questions to be answered on record by the hospital? Where will the decisions be made as far as who is admitted? Will those be made locally or by an out-of-state company? We deserve more of the generic answers. We deserve these on record. Will all referrals be from Gilbert and the East Valley? What types of patient percentages are they admitting? Ones that are more of a danger to themselves or to others? The answers have a huge based legal and clinical implications. We believe, based on the history of these facilities, that property owners and representatives of the hospital should go on record answering these questions to the town of Gilbert. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Matt, Mark, and then Renea. Matt is not speaking. Okay, Mark.
Mayor Lewis, Vice Mayor Cooper, and members of the Town Council. My name is Mark Held. I live in the Annecy community, and actually when you ventured back in 1982, a little while ago, I remember Gilbert when it had about 5,000 residents, and even at that time people thought it was a great place to live, and that hasn't changed. And one of the things like we've been involved in is across the road on Boston that we've had a lot of concerns from many residents here. It's been a very controversial issue, and members of the Town Council and the mayor, I think, sometimes are confronted with some very important decisions and that are thrown and dumped in their lap, and they have to make a decision. And a lot of times they don't have all the facts, but they have to make the best decision for the community and what they feel is right in their heart. And so we would encourage you to come out maybe before. There has been an appeal, I understand, that was filed on the zoning issue, and if they would make a site visit or, you know, in their spare time, maybe take a look at what the situation is out there, maybe drive through the Annecy community, see what we're up against, And one other issue that no one has spoke about is that the public transportation, there's only in Gilbert, with the limited public transportation we currently have, there's only bus number 156 that's available on Val Vista, and that will require anyone coming or leaving the facility to walk approximately a half a mile around the Annecy community, which is going to put them in contact with people. And that's another concern that was not even addressed in the zoning issue or the zoning plan by anyone, the public transportation aspect. And the other aspect is when there's so much controversy with an issue like this, we're just wondering, is it too late that this couldn't be put on as a ballot initiative and voters of Gilbert decide what the real issue is? Or are we too far down that road? Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Cooper, there was one more. Okay. Let's have one more.
Renea London.
Hi, I am actually Renee Lundeen, but that's okay. I get that all the time. Thanks for letting me speak. I really wasn't planning on it, but just being here at one of these town council meetings I've never been at, I just noticed we're recognizing all these great people and great things that the town of Gilbert stands for. We recognize Boy Scouts, we recognized a wonderful softball team, Pastor Paul, I think his name was. We recognize all these people and things that make our community great. And when I think about this particular facility and the location where it's at, I don't see that we're going to be up here recognizing that same thing. I think it's going to do exactly the opposite. And, you know, and it struck me that you guys were telling us that, you know, we as parents, we're supposed to be protecting our children, you know, and Gilbert's supposed to be this safe and wonderful place to live, and it is right now. It is a family-oriented community. I mean, we saw that here, like, for the last couple of hours. But I think bringing an element like this into our community is not the right choice. I want Gilbert was one of the top towns in the United States to live for our families. And I just want it to be that way 10 years from now. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Cooper, so we have a separate group, and there are 4, so we'll go with, so once they start, we'll go for 4 minutes and a little bit of leeway at the end if we need to, please.
All right, Joshua Leslie, and then I'll call, I'm going to say Dr. H. You can pronounce your name for us when you come up here. And then, this is the order, TJ Tripp, and then Jason Friday. So starting with Joshua.
Joshua Leslie, I'm a psychiatric physician assistant with location close to Gilbert, and then obviously Gilbert business resident. We want to show some support here.
Josh, we probably need you to be a little bit closer to the mic. Okay.
Better? Yeah. We wanted to show support for Saguaro Springs. I know there's a lot of concerns about its location. We want to try to address the need to have that location where it's at. It is in close proximity to additional medical facilities that are coming up. And these facilities do not have any access to any psychiatric care whatsoever. So individuals that are coming into the emergency rooms that do have psychiatric needs are at this time not being treated or being transferred to other locations such as Scottsdale or downtown Phoenix. So this location actually allows us an opportunity to have our clients and our patients' needs addressed in the community where they feel most comfortable. From a mental health stigma perspective, I was on the board of directors for the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and we want to show support for the community and for our patients that do have this need, and we want this need to be addressed within the community. And that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Hadja Ahmetovic. I am child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist. I work at the Redemption Psychiatry at Spectrum Falls. We do have my partner's office at the Spectrum Falls. And I am not a resident of the Gilbert, but spent quite a bit of time during the week here. So I have been seeing Gilbert residents, community members, Every day in our office, I see the children, adolescents, families, husband, wives, brothers, sisters, members just like any one of us, any one of here, you, I, people who are having difficulties through this tough times right now, economic times, having the stressors, anxieties, depression. So I know there's a big stigma about the mental illness, but mental illness is here. It's present just like a diabetes, just like a high blood pressure. And it is very important to have also facilities and places to treat them. We do have outpatient treatment. Oftentimes that is enough to keep person stable. However, at times you really need to get a step further and go to the hospital for a further stabilization. So anyway, I'm basically here to support my patients, to fight stigma about the mental illness if there's any way, and I know it's really present a lot. Okay?
Thank you.
Dr. Tripp and Dr. Friday.
Hi, my name's TJ Tripp. I've lived in Gilbert for the last 4.5 years, and I work in several different mental health, Desert Vista, Aurora, Sequel Care, and also joining Redemption Psychiatry. I just want to speak on behalf of the mental health community and also kind of help explain how psychiatric hospital works. Since it sounds like there's some confusion, people are voluntarily come into the hospital, so it's very infrequent AMAs when they leave. Most of them come by either ambulance or by their own vehicle, and there are just people in our own community. About 7% have depression in our community, and it takes over 10 years for them to even admit it. So there's so much stigma. That's why we don't see much support here of talking about depression or other mental illness or wanting this hospital, because they're ashamed to admit that they have this. Just briefly, the discharge process, they all have a place where they go to. They're not let back out on the street. There's transportation that's provided where they have access or other family support, so they're able to leave. They're not released back into the school system or other places. And they're not released intoxicated. They're detoxed, and their needs are addressed before they leave.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Cooper, I want to be fair, so we had 1 minute extra for the first group, so 1 more minute, please.
Yes, Dr. Friday.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Jason Friday. I'm a psychiatrist. I treat children, adolescents, and adults at Redemption Psychiatry. I actually founded my outpatient practice only 3 months ago because of the great need in this community for mental health. The nearest practice to us that treats patients with private insurance is about 14 miles away. Most people are getting their care through their family doctor, their pediatrician, and oftentimes they can treat simple illnesses, but we have been growing by leaps and bounds. I haven't even had to go and seek referrals because people are finding us. That's how great the need is here. We've grown from just myself to my 3 partners here because there is such a great need. And I think people are saying, you know, we understand the need for mental illness, but understanding also that these are our friends, our neighbors, our family, ourselves. To say that we're going to avoid having people with mental illness in our community is to ignore the fact that we have mental illness in our community. We have it and we need help. We're going to do our best, absolute best, to help the patients that we serve and keep them out of the hospital. That's our #1 goal. But we need a resource where we can have them sent to a higher level of care when needed and not have it be a 20, 30-minute drive from where we are. People who are even farther to the east can have an hour drive to get into a mental health facility, and they need their family, they need support more than anything else. They need people to come and visit them and to lift them up. And we need that here, and we need it now. The risk is lower by treating our mental illness in our community. You can't send a mental health hospital outside of town. We need other medical services that are that we can glean from Mercy Gilbert Hospital, which is so close. And I want to implore that we have this resource in our community.
Thank you. Knowing that this topic was of interest, I did inquire with town leadership as to events that would be happening in the future weeks, and this is what I received. And this will be helpful information for the council too. At the November 21st council meeting, the council will consider the appeal of the Design Review Board's decision to approving the design of the Saguaro Springs facility. The council's review is limited to issues of site or building design. At the December 4th meeting of the Planning Commission, the commission acting as the town's Board of Adjustment will consider the appeal of the zoning administrator's formal opinion stating that a behavioral health hospital is a permitted use for the proposed property under the town's land development code. Both of these processes are preliminary to the issuance of a building permit. So those are two upcoming meetings where this topic will be discussed, as opposed to it just being, we can't discuss it because it's not on the agenda. In following the guideline that's given us on our communication from citizens that we can ask town leadership to follow up, I would ask, we'll make sure that town leadership has the card from Matt, and he asked a question about whether there could be ballot initiative, and if we could contact Matt directly so that we can give him that answer, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Vice Mayor Cooper, did we have any other requests?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll move to the consent calendar. As noted on the agenda, the items listed on the consent calendar may be approved by a single motion unless removed at the request of council for further discussion or action. Other items on the agenda may be added to the consent calendar and approved under a single motion. Vice Mayor Cooper, what requests do we have on the consent calendar?
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent calendar, items 9 through 27, pulling items 11, 17, 18, 19, and 20, noting that items 10 and 16 have been removed from the agenda and that some minor changes have been made to 27 and some changes made to 14, and that's on the dais.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Or did you just give the motion? Excuse me. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. With that motion and second, please vote. That's approved with a 7-0 vote. Agenda item number 11. Councilmember Peterson, please.
Mayor, I've studied some of this, and I think Eric has done a pretty good job answering my questions. Unless the council has questions for him, I just wanted to make a brief statement. I've studied the numbers here, and actually they're improving. I do have some good news. The net operating costs are down, and ridership is up. And so I certainly see some improvement. I want to give credit where it's due. But even with that, we're still, based on a survey I studied from the Valley Metro, there's about an estimate, a good estimate would be 546 unique riders, which equates to over $4,300, 300 tax dollars, and this is a net cost to the taxpayers. This is after deducting the user fee or the fares. So that's $4,300 per rider per year. And according to Kelley Blue Book, the taxpayers could buy each rider a lot nicer used car than the one I drive once a year for that price. And the bottom line is that the bus fares only cover about 8% of the cost of the ride, so that's a 92% subsidy. And the way I see it, that's a pretty serious redistribution. Individuals don't have the right to a free ride, so they should pay the full cost of it, in my opinion. If they aren't willing to pay, maybe we need to look at how to run it more efficiently. And frankly, I find it very unfair competition with the private transportation market the way it works now. So I'm opposed to it for those reasons, Mayor.
Any other comments? Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion? Councilmember Daniels?
Mayor, I move to approve item 11.
Second.
Okay. With that motion second, please vote. That's approved with a 5-2 vote. Thank you. Agenda item number 17. Who wish to speak on that? Councilmember Peterson.
Mayor, I just want to explain my vote briefly. From what I've learned, this one is mostly being paid for out of a dedicated revenue source, the national fuel tax, not through deficit spending. There's certainly a little gray in here for me, but I'm happy to call it close enough tonight and approve it. I know that may surprise some, but with that, I'm ready to make a motion unless there's other comments.
Councilmember Taylor.
Mayor, just for the benefit of the public, it wasn't very clear in the packet where this exactly is going, and so I know we've received emails. This is the Neely Elementary crossing, and so I think the public would know that's where this project is, and I think there's definitely a need. We'll see how it goes from there. The cost that I have from staff for the total project right now seems pretty high, but I think as we move forward, and I do support it, we'll learn a lot more about what our contribution is, because there's a matching component to it. So one of the concerns I have, even though I'm supportive of it, is if we have a matching component, what are we stuck at, given whatever the federal grant will have. So I think we just need to keep an eye on that, because the cost could really get out of hand, but I think it's worth moving forward on.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson, did you want to proceed with that motion?
Sure, Mayor. I move to approve item 17.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, with that motion second, please vote. That's approved with a 7-0 vote. Agenda item 18. Councilmember Peterson.
Mayor, 18 is, it's giving me quite a bit of heartburn, actually. It's pretty convoluted if you try and think this through all the way, which I try and do with every item that comes before me. So I hope I didn't get this wrong, but I do want to congratulate the GPC for all of their progress and ingenuity in weathering the difficulties of the last few years. They've certainly been interesting. I am grateful to see a partnership with a local nonprofit to host the rodeo here in Gilbert. And so it does pain me to vote against this grant application tonight. I've done all I can to adhere to a consistent policy for special events, and that policy is that they should pay for themselves through private means, or in other words, voluntary exchange. I don't believe there should be any government subsidy for them. And if voluntary exchange can't do the job, then perhaps the event needs to be redesigned until it can. So with that, I'll be opposing this, Mayor.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Daniels.
I'd like to make the motion to approve, Mayor, but I also want to provide my compliments to GPC. I hope, been somewhat involved in the last several years and have watched you guys grow and partner with local organizations and work so hard to keep the rural heritage of Gilbert. And so for that reason, Mayor, I move to approve item 18.
I'll just add a comment too. This is a great group of volunteers and has been a key part of Gilbert. And we thank you. We're looking forward to the Pony Express and the rodeo. And in our Student Citizen of the Month tonight, we put up the calendar of events, and we'll be advocates and ambassadors for the rodeo and telling as many people as we can about it. Did you make a motion on that? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, please vote. That's approved with a 6-1 vote. Thank you. Agenda item 19. Councilmember Peterson, please.
Mayor, I won't be long on that. This is a good program, bad funding, definitely deficit spending here, and so that's enough said, I guess.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mayor.
Councilmember Taylor?
Just to remind the public, we have just crossed the debt limit of over $17 trillion. I mean, that's really serious. I don't know, I realize that this is just a drop in the bucket, but if no one does anything about it, who's going to express the concern? So I'm opposing this type of spending, although recognize the validity of the need.
Thank you. Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
With that motion, second, please vote. That's approved with a 5-2 vote. Thank you. Agenda item 20.
Mayor, I would guess maybe others have some comments to make on this. I'm actually very glad that our Development Services Department have come up with new processes and ways to apply that facilitate our, help our businesses. I think that's wonderful. Obviously, we have to adopt fees that coincide with new processes, so that makes sense. But I do think that there was a good point made from the SBA that we should take a look, and I think this will take some study, some time. But at the discussion about reducing fees in general on our businesses, it's a topic that I've been interested in for a long time. So I know it's not on the agenda tonight, but I can either pass something around, or if Mayor, you want to have them added to an agenda, or if we can get 3 nods, then we can direct staff to put it on a future agenda for us.
Councilmember Cook?
One of the things when I first started was actually looking at the fees that are actually being identified here in our development services, and it was an interesting process to understand how these fees were actually calculated through the formula or through the system. And I remember getting some different answers of exactly how the fees were actually being calculated. So I'm in favor of somewhere down the road that we come back and talk about, cost recovery, what's the, proper fees for the proper level services that are being tied to that. I know Kyle and I have had that discussion about that. So again, I think somewhere down the road we should probably have some process where we kind of relook at that.
Thank you. Councilmember Daniels.
Mayor, and perhaps Kyle, you can help us with this. You've seen the letters that have been provided in support of the new fee structure from both the Chamber and the Small Business Alliance. And both of them bring up separate topics, but something that I would like to see us address as from the town's perspective. The first one was that we adopt a policy of no more than 1 time a year changes to our fee structure. That was requested specifically that we adopt a policy as a council, and so I think we need to have that type of conversation perhaps at a future meeting. And the second was make sure that we have a comprehensive and perhaps reevaluate the methodology that we use in comprising that fee schedule. And so with those 2 comments directly from our business community, I think that that specific input needs to be taken very seriously. They reach out to lots of committees and organizations and different businesses, and that's who this affects primarily. So those are the 2 things that I'd like to see addressed at some future time, but I am in favor of us moving forward tonight.
And to our town manager and Kyle, hearing 3 members of the council, as you had received that feedback, were there plans already in motion to do some additional steps, or is that something that now, with council feedback, you will start?
Mayor Lewis, council, that is something that is on our radar and that we've known will be something that we want to accomplish in the future. So yes, we've talked about that.
Thank you. With that, are we ready for a motion? Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve item 20.
Is there a second?
Second.
That motion second, please vote. That's approved with a 7-0 vote. Vice Mayor Cooper, does that cover consent calendar? Thank you. We move to the public hearing. Agenda items 28 through 35 will be heard at one public hearing, at which time anyone wishing to comment on a public hearing item may do so. Comments will be heard from those in support of or in opposition to an item. Vice Mayor Cooper, what requests do we have tonight to speak on different items?
We have 3 requests on item 30A.
And that is it? Okay. To the council, I know council members have wanted to speak on 34. Would council members have a desire to be speaking on 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34? Or are those items that we could open the public hearing and close and vote?
I think just 35.
So 35 we won't
We need to
include.
have discussion.
Yeah, we'll have a discussion on 35.
And 30A.
And 30A. So are the other items okay? All right. So I open the public hearing on agenda items 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. And I close the public hearing on those items. And I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve items 28 through 30 and 31 through 34.
Second.
Okay, please vote. Let's approve with a 7-0 vote. Thank you. I now open the public hearing on agenda item 30A. This is the political sign discussion. And Mike, please.
Mayor and Council, I'm sorry, I have another presentation here. No. We'll do Dropbox. Right there. Quick advances. Mayor and Council, thank you very much. At our last meeting, our last council meeting, we discussed political signs. A presentation was made by planning staff with regards to the current contents of our code and suggested language for updating it to expand it perhaps, or at least make it consistent with state statute. And I wanted to take a moment just to discuss the Arizona Revised Statutes with regards to political signs. It's caused some questions among council members. And what that provides is that notwithstanding any other statute, ordinance, or regulation, a city, town, or county of this state shall not remove, alter, deface, or cover any political sign if the following conditions are met. The sign is placed in the right-of-way that is owned and controlled by the jurisdiction. That would be any sign in the town of Gilbert right-of-way. The sign supports or opposes a candidate for public office, or it supports or opposes a ballot measure. The sign is not placed in a location that is hazardous to public safety. In other words, it cannot be placed in a visibility triangle. The sign has a maximum area of 16 square feet if it's in an area located for residential use, or 32 square feet if it's located in any other area. And the sign contains the name, the telephone number, or the website address of the candidate or campaign committee contact person. So if it meets those qualifications, state law prohibits the town from having it removed, altered, defaced, covered, or bothered. And so in our current code, political sign is defined as a temporary sign which supports candidates for for office or urges action on any other matter on the ballot of primary, general, or special elections relating to any national, state, or local election. Consequently, our sign, our code, defines political signs only as signs that support a candidate or a ballot proposition, whereas the state law provides that a political sign is support or opposes, as I just referred to in the state statute. We met on October 3rd, and we discussed the following proposal. A temporary sign related to a person running for public office, whether specifically named or not, a political party, or a matter to be voted upon at any election called on by a public body. That's what staff came, or was one proposal that was before this council on October 3rd. We left that meeting with instructions to prepare an ordinance that provided that a political sign was a temporary sign designed to influence the outcome of an election called by a public body. There's also an additional proposal, a temporary sign which supports or opposes or urges action consistent with the existing ordinance. Any of these would deal with the problem that's currently in our code, whereby we offer protection only for signs that support a candidate, rather than signs that support or oppose. That particular type of limitation, which we to my knowledge, have not been enforcing, nor does anyone else in the valley, even though they may have language similar to ours, has a challenge or a constitutional concern of narrowing the band or narrowing permissible free speech. And so any of these would solve that problem. And and those three proposals that are there are the ones that we've been discussing. Do any of the mayor or any of the council members, do you have any questions?
Mike, could you go back one slide?
I hope so. That's the second slide, Mayor. Mayor.
I wanted to express appreciation to many citizens who, from our last meeting, made contact, and they had some great feedback, and some were very strong in wanting to maintain what we currently had, which was just basically to have a sign where you could have support for a candidate, but not against. And as I have looked at this state statute, talked with you and others, it becomes apparent that tonight's discussion is more of those three proposals that we looked at on the next slide, but because of number 2, we're not really here tonight to discuss whether to have a positive statement or a positive or negative. That has been decided, and so for us to be in compliance, what I've understood is we need to have language that supports the number 2 statement, and I just wanted to clarify that, and also for the public that has been sending many messages to me hoping that we could keep the same, that what I'm understanding is we really don't have that option, and therefore we, based on number 2, will be deciding on language that is in compliance, I should say, with number 2. Is that a good summary?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, so to the council, I guess we shift gears from what I really thought our discussion would be tonight of this direction or this direction. It's more sticking with number 2 and now having a discussion that is focused on which of those 3. Now, we do have some citizens that wish to speak. That I wanted to bring up also for those who will be speaking, because as a council, unless there's any disagreement, and now you can go to the 3rd slide.
I'm there, Your Honor.
We'll be focused more on, do any of those 3 proposals work, or is there some language we would want to change? And we'll start with our, unless you had anything else, we'll start, I'll go back to Vice Mayor Cooper and have our 3 citizens speak. Vice Mayor Cooper, please.
Mayor, we'll call up Jim Torgerson, after Jim, John Chiazza, and then finally Jerry McBee.
And to the 3 coming up, because this is a second round of speaking, we'll go for 2 minutes apiece. Please.
Greetings, Mayor and Council. Jim Torgerson, resident of Gilbert. I have to say I'm thrilled that the language has been expanded, but there is still some thought there that although you can now make a statement about something that would be in front of council or a school board, if you were to put something out as simple as recall Victor Peterson, he's too fiscally conservative. Well, that's not a ballot measure, and that's not something to be voted on by a public body at this point. In fact, it's urging for a recall, which wouldn't be on the ballot and wouldn't be projected unless there were enough signatures. There would also be simply taxed enough already, those signs that were out years ago. It's a statement. It's the same statement that was made 238 years ago that started a revolution, and it wasn't something on a ballot. It was a sentiment, it was a political position. And I urge you, I realize it won't die today. I mean, you could approve something and still amend it and modify it later. But any restriction upon language that involves something, it's the worst possible way to approach it. The broadest possible terms, and I seriously doubt that every corner in Gilbert will end up with a sign urging the overthrow of the council or whatever it would be. But any restriction is truly unacceptable in the long term, although I do give kudos to the expansion of the language you've given so far.
Thank you.
Mayor and City Council. I first of all want to say,
And John, if you can state your name and if you're a Gilbert resident, please.
John Chiazza, 24-year resident in Gilbert.
Thank you.
I first of all want to say I firmly believe in the First Amendment and freedom of speech. Mayor Lewis described seeing political signs as freedom in action. I do not deny there's very much our freedoms in action. I feel, however, there needs to be certain safeguards to specifics of the sign. The political sign should be promoting positives of particular candidate or candidates or issues. Political signs should not have negative slander against opposing candidates or issues like we have seen in the past. And in the present, with the override around the corner, we are seeing very negative signs appearing throughout our city. I feel these type of signs lower our dignity and reputation. We have so well built over the years. We do not need any kind of negative press coverage showing how dirty politics has come to our city. Low-grade signs that have negative political overtones, such as accusations, name-calling, negative phrases, and labeling, I feel should not be allowed. Endorsements are fine as long as they are confirmed and accurate. We should be thinking about our strong reputation as a proud, clean, family-oriented city. The new wording to the ordinance opens up possibilities of signs that will lower our reputation and dignity. It will also dissolve any possibilities of having truly clean elections. With radical politics now among us, we as a city should have safeguards to prevent any kind of dirty politics. Political signs do not win or lose elections. They can, however, reflect negative vibes that basically cheapen our city. I am all for expressing political views. I do, however, feel on political signs that are on our streets, we need to have some restrictions to prevent negative attacks on people and issues. No matter what political parties or groups we belong to, it is up to us to make sure during campaigns a certain dignity is observed. Negativity and attacks do not belong on signs that are on our streets. Please do not change the wording of our city ordinance.
Thank you.
Mr. McBee.
Hello, my name is Jerry McBee, and I live in Gilbert. Been here for a long time. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm not sure how to follow this last statement here from this last gentleman here, but he's entitled to his views, as we all are. I think if we went that route, why don't I just quit and go home and hide under the bed? But I'm not going to do that. It's our right to stand up and speak and call you whatever we want to call you. I accept that responsibility. If you don't like it, come and punch me in the nose and see if you get one back. That's the American way. We've been that way ever since we first started. Back when the British tried to control what we could say and what we could do, and when we could do it and how we could do it. We didn't stand for it then, and why should we stand for it now? I agree. There's some times, but some of these signs go over the board, go over the edge too quick, too soon, and there is some judgment and some humility that needs to be evolved there. But again, it's my right. It's our First Amendment right to speak. I like Councilman Victor Peterson's statement, which actually mirrors item number 2 that you talked about, Mr. Mayor. Very similar. except semantics game here. I remember about 15 to 20 years ago, back when I joined a committee down at the state capitol who reviewed and revised that particular Arizona statute. And we went through the very similar process. Well, I don't think it's this, we think it's that way. That's our process. Let's change it, but make it easy. Don't put any restrictions on it. It's our rights to call you a rat if we want to. It's your right to call me a rat, a radical, an agitator, subversive individual, just a plain kook or a nut. I don't care. I take those as badges of honor. In fact, I was called in the Supreme Court of the United States a bigot. That's fine. Thank you. I am a bigot when it comes to certain things, and a zealot. Okay? My point here, use the simple method of keep it simple, stupid, KISS. Make it so everybody in this community can understand what the rules are. Make sure that they put their name, address, and phone number, legitimate phone numbers, on those signs. The rest of it is our right for freedom of speech. If you restrict that, then you're restricting our rights of free speech.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Cooper, any other requests?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Some council comments. Councilmember Ray.
Mike Hamblin, question for you. Just to make two things clear, if we choose one of these three proposals here, we still are obligated to follow all the state statutes that apply to political signs. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Member Ray, that is correct. This does not amend or alter our obligations under state law in any way.
And one of the points that was brought up by a couple of the gentlemen that spoke would be slander, et cetera. We would still be under that same obligation of slander laws, et cetera. Simply because the political sign does not mean that you can truly say whatever you want without potentially being held liable in the court of law. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That also probably explains why all signs to have the protection must have the name and the phone contact information or phone number of the person posting the sign, person or group posting the sign.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Councilmember Peterson.
I don't know if we're ready to get into which one we like the best, but I would like to explain why I still think the current proposal is the best. Not because I came up with it, it's actually patterned off of state law, but there is a new trend out there of signs that are simply website addresses. Now, I give two examples I've seen. It's all they have is an address, and signs like gilbertoverride.com or overridetruth.com. And actually, you wouldn't know this, but those are two signs on opposite sides of the issue right now. And they don't necessarily indicate support or opposition, but they most certainly do indicate an intent to influence the outcome of an election. And those signs are a new trend with the internet and the role it plays in society, especially in the political process. And so I think they also need to be protected. So that's why I still think that other language, that current proposal, would be the optimal one.
Okay. And if we can, thank you for that help. If we can have go to the third slide, that'll help us in this discussion. Well, and might go to the second one, just pressing enter. And I just bring up again, and John, thank you for your comments on that second one, where there could be a desire to keep it the same. What has been the instruction through emails to the council is that because of number 2, to be in compliance, we're about to change. And then that's really not the discussion tonight. The discussion, therefore, is the next slide, which has the 3 options of consideration.
Mayor, members of the council, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
State law, a sign in opposition to a candidate is a protected sign, but not currently under our ordinance.
Thank you. And then if you can press, go to the, so that third slide. So Councilmember Peterson has spoken, and some comments on the current proposal, and Councilmember Taylor.
Michael, can I ask a follow-up question on the website types of signs? Since they're not opposing or supporting a candidate or a ballot measure, what status are they? I mean, they wouldn't fall under the definition of a political sign.
There is no, Mayor, Member Taylor, or Councilman Taylor, there is no legal decision on that. Just looking at it, it would seem that one could make the argument that those signs do not either support or oppose a candidate, but they refer you to a website that opposes or supports a candidate. It's hard to tell how a court would rule. In that instance, the current proposal does speak in slightly broader terms and would be more likely to capture those types of signs within its purview.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cook?
One of the things that I wanted to do, as we met last time, was to talk about a particular test. So I did chat with our leadership in prosecution about that test. And with the current proposal, leadership in prosecution did indicate to me that a citation would actually be issued. Now, I wasn't looking for prosecution to actually occur or whatever, but at least a citation could have been issued. And so to me, the language that is currently proposed would meet that criteria and satisfy my my quest to, change the language.
Okay. Other comments? Mike, part of, let's see, the additional proposal, a temporary sign which supports or opposes or urges action. I believe in the email that you sent, there was a phrase, a temporary sign which supports or opposes a candidate or a certain ballot measure. And one reason why that would be important is some fear that if you go outside of the candidate and maybe you're attacking family, and that they would want to be protective of those not involved in an election and just, in a sense, focus on either the candidate or the ballot measure. Do you recall, is that correct on the additional proposal? Is that why that was brought to the attention of the council, is that it would be very specific, it would be more specific than the current proposal?
Mayor, members of the council, that's correct. The additional proposal, which would simply add the word or opposes, to the existing definition of political sign, has the advantage of being consistent with state law, but also has the advantage of not extending protection to signs, or being less likely to extend protection to signs critical of non-candidates. Now, that doesn't, whether those types of regulations could, there's issues with regards to constitutional challenges and such, but at least under our code, that would be signs that attack the family members of candidates could be less likely to be defined as a political sign and have the protections under our code or under state law.
Okay. Vice Mayor Cooper?
Mayor, the language I prefer, and I really I wish we could be talking about no negative signs, but because I really do not like the negative signs one bit, but the language that I prefer, and I was going to ask you to go to slide 2, if you can.
That's it.
Counselor.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Would be just taking number 2 there and making that our definition, basically, and adding the words, a temporary sign that supports or opposes a candidate for public office, or that supports or opposes a ballot measure. That is directly consistent with what's in state law, and if state law changes down the road, then we can address it again, but I don't think we need to be any more broad than what our state legislature has decided for us at this point.
And Mike, back to Councilmember Peterson's comment of if a sign just said a website link, and at that website it does support or oppose a candidate, would what Vice Mayor Cooper just said, would that number 2 verbiage work? Where, and I know you comment on this, but now I'm getting more specific in saying that as long as the website had support or opposition in the language there, and someone came to you today, which we have some signs up with that number 2 in potential language in our statute, would that work to allow that website to stay up?
Mayor, members of the council, there's no cases deciding that, and that defendants in such an action would argue that our sign itself does not support or oppose any candidate. And so the current proposal is stronger in capturing that idea or that thought. The additional proposal is stronger in mirroring state language and would less likely extend protection to signs such as that.
Okay. And so to the council, I might just ask for some input. The trend that Councilmember Peterson mentioned, where it might just say a website, are we in favor of that? And if so, can we merge language together that might work? Councilmember Daniels?
Yeah, Mayor, I think we can. Sorry to make you bounce around, Mike, but can you go to the third slide?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think I finally know how to do it. Back and forth.
If nothing else, right?
Yes, yes. It has been educational for me.
Of our 2 goals, Mayor, are both to protect First Amendment rights as it relates to political signs and political speech, and the second is to comply with state statute. And recognizing the trend of some of these, which in my opinion, putting a website, solely a website on a sign, urges action. It's urging action. It's asking you to go to a site where I guess you could find out more. And so I think the additional proposal allows us to both comply with state law, protect First Amendment rights as it relates to political speech, and allows for a sign that urges action as it relates to a ballot measure or an election relating to candidates. And so I feel like that particular language allows it to encompass all. We've been told there's no case law, so we don't really know if either definition would protect the website type of signs, but I think that particular definition does allow us to accomplish all 3 of our goals, if you will.
Councilmember Cook?
So Mike, I'm going to ask that question. If that language was adopted back to the test that I use, how does that test pass or fail?
Mayor, Councilmember Cook, I'm not sure I understand your question.
So when Susan was here related to a particular incident that happened a couple years ago.
Yes.
The question I had at the council meeting was the test. And again, as I talked to leadership with prosecution, the language that was currently proposed would meet that test. If we go back to adding the additional verbiage, is that test still hold?
Mayor, Councilmember Cook, when you indicate adding additional verbiage, do you mean combining?
Well, no, I'm just trying to understand. Are we thinking of changing it completely, or are we adding?
Maybe I can help translate. Based on a temporary sign which supports or opposes or urges action. So the additional proposal that's listed down there, Councilmember Cook is asking if one of the previous signs that was up in another election, if that would be considered protected under that definition. Right?
That's debatable. Of those 3 proposals, the sign most likely to capture that type of, or the proposal most likely to capture that type of sign would be the current proposal. It may also be the case that the additional proposal, and I realize that it goes off in 4 dots there, but what that's intended to communicate is that the remainder of the definitions is the same as it currently exists. And so the additional proposal would be a temporary sign which supports or opposes or urges action on any other matter on the ballot of primary, general, special elections relating to any national, state, or local election. And so my opinion is that the current proposal is slightly broader than the additional proposal. The additional proposal has the advantage of mirroring state language and going no farther. And cases that may come down will probably address that language as that language is mirrored elsewhere. Our language would be somewhat unique if we were to adopt the third proposal. But I must tell you that the current proposal, as listed up there, is slightly broader and arguably captures signs that the additional proposal or the state law does not currently capture.
So did you answer my question as it relates to the third additional?
That's Mayor, Councilmember Cook, that's impossible to tell. All I can tell you is that the current proposal is broader and would be more likely to capture it. A defendant, were we to have either the 10-3 proposal or the additional proposal, a defendant would say, oh, I'm not urging action other than to go see a website. Now, whether a judge accepts that or rejects that as a defense, or that it causes a prosecutor to charge or not charge, I can't tell you.
Could I, and excuse the interruption on Councilmember Cook, but I want to go back to Councilmember Daniels. I was listening, and I want to see if I understood and then tie it back to this question about the test. What I was hearing you say is a merger, and if we were taking the verbiage from the state, and this could be slightly reworded because it says the word election several times, but a temporary, merging the two, a temporary sign that supports or opposes a candidate for public office or supports or opposes a ballot measure. So it's very specific and would protect against, I mean, it would be candidate and then family members would be protected, or urges action in an election designed to influence the outcome of an election called by a public body. So it takes Councilmember Peterson's verbiage and then gives the web links the ability to be there. Is that what you were doing, was merging those two? Yes. And so, give or take maybe a slight wordsmithing, that's what you would propose we would vote on?
Yes, Mayor, because to remind us as a council, we're trying to define what a political sign is, not what an ideological sign or anything else that might be protected under the First Amendment. We are defining what a political sign is in the town of Gilbert, and nothing more than that.
Okay. And so to Councilmember Cook, I am just making an assumption, and I could be completely wrong, but to Mike, if there was a sign with the verbiage that Councilmember Daniels just mentioned that said the name of someone who is not a candidate.
In other words,
although that sign could be urging, some of the verbiage that Councilmember Peterson has, it could be urging. I like what you've got because if it's a web link, that's a call to action, but in this case, that test I don't think passes. I think the sign would be taken down. And so you can comment on that if you'd like, but okay. So the council, let's talk about Councilmember Daniels' verbiage. Do we like it, not like it, want to change it? Councilmember Taylor.
Mayor, the reason why I like the current proposal is you avoid all the parsing and splitting hairs and trying to interpret. Here's just a thought. Somebody could still put a sign up that says, don't vote for Jared Taylor because his wife is a developer and she's in the pockets of some of the deal, so it would meet the definition of the second proposal because it's urging, opposing or supporting, but then still attacking the family. People are going to get creative around it. To me, policy needs to be clean, and I bias on the side of broad. I just think the current proposal is the cleanest because I still think that there's ways that people will wiggle around it and well, is it implicit urging to action or is it not? I mean, it's just a website, and I know that's why I bias a little bit to the current proposal because it's a little cleaner. Yes, it's a little broader, but to me, I see people can work around it in other ways, and that's the cleanest, safest way I think we can go.
Okay. Other comments? Councilmember Ray, any comments at this point?
Mayor, members of the council, that they can be combined if you wished. And, you know, that language can be crafted and
Okay, which is what Councilmember Daniels is proposing. Okay.
placed in the state.
Councilmember Ray?
I'm ready to move forward. I think that the current proposal is fine and encompasses a little bit more, and so I'm ready to move forward with that.
Okay. Councilmember Cook, any?
I'm good with the current proposal.
Okay. I'll just echo, I kind of like the merger. Councilmember Taylor, when you just mentioned your wife, she's a great person. I don't want her in signs in Gilbert. I don't think that's Gilbert. So I'm going to echo my support of Councilmember Daniels' verbiage, and yet I'll be ready to close the public hearing on 30A if there are no more comments and we can vote.
Mayor, members of the council, I did wish to make one more statement. If you adopt the current proposal, you are expanding the realm of political signs that receive protection. And so I don't receive protection. In other words, we cannot remove them if they attempt to influence an election but do not support or oppose a candidate. In other words, we're amending our town code to extend protection to those signs such that town staff cannot remove them. And I just, based on a statement that was made a moment ago, I'm not sure that's clearly understood.
Any more discussion on that?
Just to add to that, I think it would be inappropriate for us if in the middle of an election, after signs have been printed and paid for, that we decided that we didn't like that or that we perhaps made a mistake as a council. So I just want to make sure that the council knows that whatever decision we make right now, we're going to have to live with through at least one election. It would be inappropriate for us to change in the middle of an election cycle. That would be unfair to those who have paid for something.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just, because I had made that additional proposal and now we have a merger out there, I just want to go on record for supporting that merger. I think it's a mistake to expand it any further.
I'll voice 2 to the 4 that are inclined to go current proposal. There is a principle that the 4 of you know well, and it's a principle 2 that talks about public virtue. I invite you just to think about that a little bit, because if any of your family members are in signs, I don't think that's in adherence to that principle. And it would cause me to reflect on tonight, as we did do our job to protect individuals that we really care about. And so I'm in favor of keeping them out. And invite you just to, that's an important principle that all 4 of you believe strongly in, and so I invite you to consider that as you make your vote. Any other comments? Councilmember Peterson?
Mayor, I pondered that same point. The exact concern you have, I feel. I had a pretty in-depth conversation with Susan Goodwin, and when it came down to it, there's no way to avoid, if we're going to protect freedom of speech, there's no way we can legally avoid some of those situations. It just can't be done. It's the nature of freedom. And so there are signs that I really think must be protected, but I think my language has the best chance of doing that. It's important to me. So I want to err on the side of freedom. I think that's appropriate. With that, I would move to approve the current proposal.
Okay. We haven't closed the public hearing yet, but I'm about to. Any other comments before we close the public hearing?
Mayor, members of the council, I'm sorry once again, but I'm not sure that if there's an understanding as to this point I'm about to make. If the 2 proposals are merged, then the broader language that extends protection, meaning we cannot remove the signs that only urge action, that arguably attempt to influence an election but not support or oppose, the merged language will also extend protections to those signs. In other words, you'd have a proposal, a merged proposal is, it either supports, you cannot remove a sign that either supports or opposes, or attempts to influence an election. And so when you make reference to, you wish to have, not have protections extended to signs that mention family members, the merged one would as well.
That's,
That
Councilmember
actually
King?
wasn't the merger. It was actually just urges action on a matter before the public in an election. That was the merger. So.
And I've misunderstood. My apologies.
And let me just make sure I understood that. If we voted on the current proposal and a sign appears that has someone's name or is referring to someone who's not a candidate, does that protect that? Would that sign stay up or come down?
It would, we could not remove it.
Okay.
Because it could be, well, our ability to remove it would be made more difficult because it could, the person who put up that sign would say, no, I was attempting to influence an election. Even though it's not in support, it's arguably not in support or opposition to any particular candidate.
Okay, Councilmember Cook?
And again, I just want to say that this type of language, I think, really protects the freedom of speech because when we were back in the days of Proposition 406, when we had a lot of homemade signs, literally signs that were going up were coming right down. And to me, I think this type of language hopefully will be more of a deterrent for individuals that want to take them down. I know that we talk about, the town being able to take them down, but I think there's protection against other individuals that want to take these signs down. I want to protect those signs, no matter if they're, positive or if they're negative. To me, that seemed to be part of that test, is that folks felt that I was offended. I don't like that sign. I'm going to take it down. So I believe this type of language, provides more of a deterrent toward that.
Okay. Well, I certainly, and the first year as mayor, there were many citizens that said we got to do away with these political signs, and yet echoing that, there's something very special when political signs go up. It is freedom in action. I do like it. And I know from an economic development standpoint, it was mentioned, I do want a positive image for the community. And I did have a business leader visiting make a comment the last election how surprised he was with some of the signs, and so it wasn't positively reflecting, but it was still freedom in action. I guess I was making some notes as I was thinking about this. I still worry that current proposal opens up the ability for individuals that are not involved, that did not put their name out in front, and the phrase public virtue, our founding fathers talked about that, and they described public virtue as a very special quality of human maturity and character and service closely akin to the Golden Rule. And we are a Golden Rule city. And Samuel Adams, father of the Revolution, made this comment, and she starts off by saying she, and he's referring to America. She may long enjoy her independence and freedom if she will. It depends on her virtue. And I echo again, I would just hate to have any of your family members involved in an inappropriate way. That's not Gilbert. And so I worry about that language of the current proposal, but I will be open for vote in just a moment. Councilmember Ray?
Mayor Lewis, I appreciate your comments, and I agree with you wholeheartedly from a standpoint of public virtue, and I hope that no one would ever use people's families or anything of that nature to try to persuade an election. And I appreciate your comments from some of the founding fathers, but at the same time, the point of that, I think, was the point of it I agree with, but they also said you have the freedom to choose. And I think that's what we're doing now, that we're allowing that freedom there, and people can choose that. And I agree with the statements that we do want the public virtue, but I don't think it's right to force it upon the people either. And so I agree with it, and I hope that no one on this council or anyone ever running for political office would cross that line. But at the same time, I do think it's people's right to have that option, as did the Founding Fathers.
Do you have any other comments? Councilmember Taylor?
Mayor, and I appreciate your call as the reminder for public virtue. I mean, it's incredible. There's a reason it's number 2, because it's so important. I also reflect back to the 3 of us, right? We're subject to a target piece during our campaigns last year. And they weren't attacking our families, they were attacking our religion. And if they did that in a sign form, it would pass the muster of the second, because they were urging action, or they were obviously opposing our candidacy. So while I agree with you on the principle, I'm not seeing, they can dodge it. I mean, they can still do that under that current language, which is why I'm not sure that's really going to solve, whether they're going to attack religion or family or other things that we've seen. And, perhaps the public will learn a lesson, because we're the 3 that, were elected, and the public in Gilbert, they see that. And a lot of people said that they were very concerned about that, and that helped decide who they wanted to vote for, because it reflected on certain candidates. So I just don't see how we can explicitly avoid those personal attacks, even with that language, is what I come back to.
And the scope of what we're talking about are political signs in the public right-of-ways, and so social media, emails, that First Amendment right goes very broad. And so we're voting tonight on something that we would have control over in representing our community and representing what Gilbert's all about. So that's our focus. But I agree, and that's a prime example of there are other ways. If you want to express those opinions, you can. I'm just simply saying what we do have control over, to consider it. Thank you. Any other comments? I close the public hearing on agenda item 30A, and will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve the current proposal.
Is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Please vote. That's approved with a 4-3 vote. Thank you. We move to agenda item 35, and I open the public hearing on agenda item 35. And did we have any comments that needed to be made, or should we open up to council discussion?
Mayor, members of the council, I have the staff report on that. Just
Please.
an update. At our council meeting in October, when building codes were considered and the triannual updates of those codes were entertained, the vote and the instruction to staff was to create or prepare an ordinance that creates a Building and Regulatory Codes Advisory Board. Staff did that. They reviewed the codes of Phoenix and other municipalities and came up with a proposal set forth in agenda item 35 and the attached ordinance that creates the board, establishes its purpose, indicates the membership, a membership of 7 involving a diverse field of expertise, a professional engineer, a professional architect, and a construction industry representative, a licensed fire industry representative, the town's fire chief or the chief's designee, a residential developer, licensed residential contractor, a commercial developer, licensed commercial contractor, and a member of a local business group. And as set forth in the proposed ordinance, their duties and responsibilities are set forth. And I can entertain any questions you have.
Thank you. As the council knows, normally I want to make sure that we have council feedback, and then I jump in at the end. I want to jump in at the beginning, and I talked to Mike about this before council meeting tonight. When I read 35, there was an email that came to the council, and so Mike, if you could just put that on. There's a quote that you may recall, the Henry David Thoreau quote. And speaking of urging action, that quote, "The government that does best is the government that does less." I read that, and then I read 35, and I just said, this is not what I really think we wanted, because 35 just brings so much more regulation. It brings hundreds and hundreds of hours of staff time, of additional time, of interviewing time, and all of a sudden I said, I'm not sure if that's what we wanted. So I am going to, Mike, and this is hopefully large enough font to read that, and I'll describe it. And this is brainstorming for a minute to see if council members have similar feelings that this could help discussion, help us be efficient. If it doesn't, I apologize. But I was asking the question if there was a way we could still simplify the progress we made on the building codes, still have input, still have the transparency. And so this was the thought process, that when we left off our discussion about building codes, we had quite a bit of agreement. And the conversation went on lengthy, then I just think we ran out of gas. And so what I'm proposing on that first dash is that we might look back to our town manager and leadership to remind us where we had agreement, and possibly include, we can't go more than 3, but we could have 3 council members have dialogue with town leadership, and that could be part of a future agenda. And so instead of starting this new advisory council, it's my thought process that we would go back to where we left off to see what we agreed on, have it presented in a council meeting, and see if we couldn't vote on what we agreed on, and then identify the areas that we did not agree on or that we wanted more input in. And a key part about what was discussed in our last dialogue was, other than Councilmember Peterson, the 6 of us, and we have some experience in home building because we're in homes and we have some things that we can relate to, but for the most part the codes were so voluminous that it's almost overwhelming to say we could make some of those decisions. So we were looking for help, and the thought would be, for those areas that we were looking for help, that could be identified, and ask Development Services to take a scope of where we're looking for help and have a stakeholders group come together, maybe the same 7 or something that we would designate that would make sense, and have that group talk about those topics and come back to other future council meetings, and we could vote on those. Now, at a high level, I'll summarize that in shorter sentences to say, I'm not sure as a council we were looking for more regulations, more government, but we were looking for help. And we made progress, and this is to say, let's take that progress, see if we can come to an agreement on where we were, and identify where we didn't have agreement, ask for help, and have that help come back. Your thoughts will be appreciated. Councilmember Peterson.
Mayor, I think that's a discussion we can have, but if we want to take it that broad, I think we'll have to schedule it for a future council meeting because it's not on the agenda. But let me put it this way, that is in the scope of this agenda. Unless there's an amendment that I would like to see with the ordinance, or else I won't be in favor of it at all. And it's some language that, I'll just explain this real quickly here. Some language that our town attorney has provided. I would want to add under the powers and duties that all recommendations from the Building and Construction Regulations Code Advisory Board shall be recommendations either to reduce regulations or maintain existing regulations. If it's not that framework, I'm not in favor of it anyway. So I may be with you that I would be looking for maybe another conversation about another approach if I can't get something like that done.
Thank you. Councilmember Ray?
I appreciate your comments, Mayor. I agree with you that the more I looked at this and the more I thought about it and talked to some of the different businesses and our own development services, I think that creating this board or commission is not the best idea. I like your proposal. I think that we can fine-tune that even more and kind of speed up the process even more. What I would propose, and I don't know how much we can talk about other ideas here, Mike, if we need to just stick to yes or no on the agenda item, if we can give other ideas in addition to that agenda item.
You can give ideas and direct staff to go, and if that's the consensus or the majority of the council, staff can be directed to put this on the agenda again and put those ideas into some form of formal motion.
So my thought with that, Mayor, my idea would be that we would move forward with the 2012 code. As I remember, the last discussion we had with the group who strongly opposed the codes, they had whittled down their list to approximately 39 items that they had concern over, and some of those were already in agreement with town staff that they agreed should be removed as well. So I think the final number that they were around was between 30 and 35 that they had most concern with. I would recommend that we create a strike force group with a couple of members from the chamber, a couple of members from the SBA, a town employee, member of the Home Builders Association. Each one of those groups have already agreed to be a part of this group and to offer their suggestions. And the SBA and the chamber have both offered their experts, not just someone on a policy group, but the experts in the field, that they would get together, and also two members from the group that oppose this. They would get together, and by the end of the year, they would come to a conclusion on those 30 or so items. I suspect that they will be able to agree that some of those items should be removed, and I suspect that they will not be able to agree on certain items, and I think that at that point, majority rules, and they put forward their recommendation to the council. But we have now had almost a dozen different business owners who have come to Development Services in hopes of having their plans approved, who are asking to be viewed under the 2012 codes because there's actually less regulation in many areas with those codes. And so I would be of the opinion that we direct staff that we would move forward with those codes with that strike force being created till the end of the year. And speaking to some of those different groups that would be involved in that strike force, they believe that by the end of the year they would be able to come to a conclusion on the majority of those, and I suspect those that they can't come to a conclusion on, even if we give them 2 years, they wouldn't come to a conclusion. So I think that that would be a short time frame where they would be able to get together with the experts who understand this and come back on those items, and I think that that would then make all parties involved in this happy with the conclusion.
Sure. And I think I'm going to just keep coming down this direction, but to summarize that, it sounds like the concept, and I'm not advocating, I'm not lobbying for this, I'm just bringing us, this was more to try and save time tonight, that you're not in favor of the advisory board either, and it's almost as if you just say the 39 items or however many there were, a strike force looks at those, brings it back, and then brings it in totality again. So as opposed to having town leadership come back and have us vote the next meeting or two, we'll just have the strike force go out, finish the discussion on the 39 items, and then we'd come back and vote on it all together?
We could do that, or we could go forward with the code with the condition that we're going to look at those 39 items, the strike force over the next 2 months.
And we couldn't vote on the 2012 tonight based on the verbiage here, but we could put that on another meeting.
Yes, you can direct staff to do as you instruct and put it on another agenda, but there can be no vote. The only vote that can be done tonight is either to approve or disapprove the board or amend the language with regards to the board's powers or membership or whatever.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Cooper?
Yeah, I don't think we need this board. I think it was kind of, like you said, we backed into a awkward compromise, and you know, some of us were ready to move forward already, and with regardless of the 39 issues or whatever that were outstanding. So and I do like that proposal that Councilmember Ray has suggested, and so when the code comes back to us, And, you know, there's not going to be complete agreement. It's obvious that some of us had more than 39 issues, but if, you know, that the code is brought to us with a list of 39, in fact, we may even pick some of those off ourselves. We may just say, you know, it's actually only 16 issues that they need to look at or something, and I would welcome that conversation so we can move this down the road. We can get businesses that are asking to use these codes the opportunity to use it as soon as possible.
Councilmember Taylor?
Mayor, I really appreciate your ideas here. I mean, this is why I voted no for the commission when it came up, and I 100% agree with the spirit of this. I mean, if you could clarify, if we go through this process, then we would vote and support on the things that we do agree, maybe the fire code, but then those that are debatable, green or energy, would not necessarily be voted or supported, but continue to go through a process, whether it's yours or the, right, is that what we're saying? Just put into ordinance what we agree?
Right. I think Councilmember Ray said it better than I did, that a future meeting we could have town leadership remind us the things that appeared to be ready to be voted upon, and we could, and then you were getting specific and saying there are 39 items that we could then direct, and Vice Mayor Cooper, you were saying maybe in that meeting too we would say only look at these 16, something like that, but that's the gist of it.
Like that, yeah, I'd support that direction.
Councilmember Daniels?
Mayor, I'm open to other alternatives than making government bigger.
Okay. Councilmember Cook?
Well, as everyone remembered, I just asked for help. And as I went through all of those many pages, you know, at the end of the day, it was about a recommendation from our experts. And however that is done or formed, you know, obviously that's what I'm looking for. So if the strike team is the way we get that recommendation, you know, I'm okay with that. So if that strike team consists of, you know, experts and some of our business leaders, and I would even throw out maybe even consumers could be part of that, that we might be open to that. But again, I think a recommendation, however that process works, if it's simplified, I'm all for that.
Okay. Councilmember Peterson.
I want to throw out one other thought for a future agenda, since we're throwing out ideas. The current code already says that alternative materials, designs, and methods of construction and equipment, there's an option there that says the provision of this code are not intended to prevent the installation of any material or prohibit any design or method of construction not specifically prescribed by the code. And then it goes on to say that an alternative material, design, or method of construction shall be approved where the building official finds the proposed design is satisfactory and complies with the intent of the provisions of this code. The reason I point that out is there's another thought we can look at. And the Home Builders Association presented this idea to me, and they said you might look at the fact that that already allows for someone, if the building official says, yeah, you can submit under 2012, he can already do that. So there's other ways to slice this thing. You know, we may look at, maybe we look at the idea of 2006 remains the code, but we also make it an option for people to submit under 2012 if they want to. Something like that. But I would like that discussion to be broad enough to include that kind of an idea as well.
Okay. To our town leadership, listening to these comments, and the public hearing is still open, and we haven't given real specific direction, although you've heard some comments. Do you have any summaries you could give of how to help us, of what you just heard?
Mayor, members of the council, I'll do my best to summarize, and feel free to disagree. I think what I heard some consensus around was bringing back the 2012 codes for potential adoption and taking staff in between now and then, looking at those outstanding items, assemble a strike force and begin work on that. I'm not sure if we can resolve all of those prior to the November 7th council meeting, but if there are some ones that are fairly easy to do so, then we will eliminate as many as we can, continue working on the ones beyond then and bring them back for final adoption, but have the 12 codes up for a vote on the 7th.
Okay. And so to Councilmember Ray, where you said it much better than I did, and whether it's the 7th or 21st, probably whatever time period you need, but was that a summary that would work for you? And it gets back to, so I just assumed I had language of the 7 that were proposed, but when you're saying strike team, that gives a little more flexibility for town leadership and staff to say this is what team we would recommend organizing based on your comments, really. So does that work?
It does, Mayor.
Okay. So for tonight, to our town attorney, we're still in public hearing, so I'm not looking for a motion yet, but if I close the public hearing, do we need to vote on whether to organize an advisory board, or we've just given town leadership direction as to how to proceed? And
you can give town direction on how you wish to proceed.
Okay. I think we did. And so if I close the public hearing, it would be ready to move on to something else. Does that work? I close the public hearing on agenda item 35. And we move to administrative items. Agenda item number 36. We'll turn to Dawn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Dawn Irvine, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget here for the Town of Gilbert, and I have the opportunity this evening to look at a year in review for you for fiscal year 2013. So while a lot happened obviously over the course of the year, there are a few things that we wanted to highlight tonight. And I will zoom in just a bit on that. So starting with some of the expenditures, as you know, a couple of years ago we looked at a zero-based budget, and the idea behind that was to tighten the budgets at the functional area level so that the contingency, or the flexibility, if you will, to respond to contingent expenses or emergent situations could reside more at a town level or at a fund level, so that we could prioritize the use of those funds, and that we made sure that we had the available resources to handle the priorities of the town. As you can see here, in many ways we've been able to do so, but I want to clarify a few points here. Number one, as we've talked about over the course of the last couple of years, we do budget 100% of the cost of every position in every department, knowing that we'll have vacancy savings. So we do anticipate that at the end of the year, when you look at the budget to actuals, we will continue to have those types of savings in those areas, because we want to make sure that within every department they have the resources available for every given position. We don't know where those vacancies will lie. It also allows then for the cost of the recruitment of those vacancies, any payouts related to leave balances and such, that we have the ability to address those. So we do find within Government Finance Officers Association, which is our national organization and where our national standards resides, that is consistent with the best practices that are recommended for the budgeting of personnel. So we do continue to budget for 100% of all of our staffing costs, and in our forecast models, that's where we really look at our anticipated salary savings. So we will continue to see those types of savings going through. Now, when you look at those expenditures, though, at the top, look at the general fund, for example, and we see at the end of the year, not including the contingencies, we have about a $6 million savings from budget to actuals. Now, that is very much consistent with what we would expect to see with salary savings, and then some minimal savings throughout the departments. Down below, you'll see a breakout by department of those expenditures, and you can see, for example, where you have management and policy, that's actually where we've rolled up many of the internal service departments. So under management and policy, that's not just the manager's office, that's where you'll see the IT department, the human resources Department, the Office of Management and Budget, Economic Development, Communications, et cetera. So there are actually several departments that roll up into that heading. Now, where you see that 1.2 million in savings, most of that comes in the form of salary savings due to some vacancies, and some of that is are vacancies that occurred over the course of the year, and others were due to some of the new, to a couple of new positions that were budgeted during that year. One of the things that we saw as we've moved forward with some changes in the organization is that as we had vacancies, we had some internal recruitments or internal promotions, and so it did kind of perpetuate some of that a little bit, and we're starting to see some of that settle a little bit, and we'll continue to monitor that. Now, one of the other areas, if you look down below the general fund, back in that top section again, you'll see a series of funds in the Public Works Department. As you know, there's been a lot of attention on Public Works over the course of the last year, and they've made some tremendous improvements in their processes, in the way that we go about our contracts and such, as well as having some vacancies. So you'll see throughout several vacancies in Public Works, and those vacancy salary savings are reflected in those numbers. But you'll also see some emphases that with Council's emphasis on contracts, for example, and going back out to bid more often, you'll see that we've been able to recognize some efficiencies in the way that we do business, and recognize some cost efficiencies in the way that we've been able to award those contracts. And so those are present in there, especially in some of the areas such as chemicals and such. Moving forward, we're going to continue to work through that. Again, we'll be going fine-tuning some of those line items this year, and then coming back to Council next year with a zero-based budget again, so you'll continue to see that emphasis and tightening down in those areas. Any questions on the expenditure side? And then just a quick highlight on the revenues. Again, this is consistent with what we've been looking at over the course of the last year. As we know, sales tax began improving out of the recession very quickly and consistently, and we saw that continue throughout the course of the last year. So we ended with our sales tax numbers as you see here, about halfway down that second section there at about $6.6 million over budget, and that's been incorporated in a couple of different ways. Part of that we consider a sustainable level based on where we are at as a community, the additional retail that we've brought in, and so we worked very carefully to determine the level that would be considered sustainable in there. But as Council knows, there were also some legislative actions that changed the way that our sales tax is calculated, both in terms of some of the construction activities, but then also in terms of the commercial lease tax. And so what you'll see moving forward is we have a projection this year where we ended the year last year at over $61 million in sales tax overall. The budget for this year was right around 60. We did lower that just a little bit because of those legislative impacts. But as you can see, consistent with what we saw throughout the course of those years, those revenues did come in at the end of the year much stronger than originally anticipated. So, Mayor, with that, I'd be happy to address any questions or go over any other details.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councilmember Taylor?
Don, I know we weren't able to connect here. One of the questions I had for you is related to the contingency report at the end in the packet. And my question is on the expense side, it looks like we're about $6 million under, but then there's this whole long list of things that we pulled from the contingency in the under this general fund category. $20,000 in staffing, $6,000 employee picnic, $4,000 tax compliance software. So why do we need to pull from contingency when we were $6 million on the expense side?
Mayor, Councilmember Taylor, that's a great question. So in many cases, we were where we were under in salaries and salary savings. That's an area that the departments do not have flexibility with, because we do anticipate those savings in the model. We do forecast that, and then also because we apply those salary savings very specifically for related expenses to those vacancies. So where a lot of what you saw in savings was on the salary side, and then continue contingency was established by the council to address such issues that were unanticipated throughout the course of the year. So we wanted to make sure and keep the integrity of that system in place. Where you see down below, you'll see where the contingency was originally budgeted at 16.8. You'll not see any actual expenses in contingency. What you see is the ending budget is actually lower. So the amended budget is reduced in contingency, increased in the particular lines where there wasn't budget. But what we did was use that contingency based on the way it was established to meet those contingent expenses, rather than trying to move salary savings from a department that had salary savings into a completely different department that had a non-salary related need.
Don, thank you. Mayor, I guess the observation I have is, contingency is for really high priority things that we either missed or something came up. And, some of the things like the picnic and recruitment costs, to me, those are probably less of a priority than, true emergencies that contingencies funds are designed for. There's some here that I do think meet that criteria. But maybe that's something we revisit in the future is, what actually triggers a pull from that.
Thank you. Councilmember Daniels?
Jared, in response to that, when we looked at the way that we budgeted and when we did the zero-based budgeting, we didn't want any of the departments to have what you would consider to be any type of padding for just-in-case expenses. We wanted them to really look at the zero-based budget. If they are paying for simply what they expect and what is needed in the community, then that is what we wanted them to budget. And then any other dollars were put into contingency. And so that created an accountability, if you will, that perhaps wasn't there before, where contingency, yes, is there for emergencies, absolutely, but it's also there because we want to be able to have each department be accountable for anything that isn't budgeted within their actual budget. So that was the thought process and purpose, and we did that when we adopted our financial policies and had those types of discussions.
Councilmember Peterson?
Mayor, Councilmember Daniels has very expertly explained that. And there is a remaining concern for me, though, as I examine this budget. I talked with Dawn a little bit about this, and I think she's begun to explain it, that there are vacancy savings that we see every year. But when I look at the fact that our actual expenditures was 110 and our budget was 110, and yet we went ahead and spent $11 million in contingency, that seems like there's a lot of, I hate to say padding, but I'm concerned that there is still some padding left. I don't know how much exactly, I haven't done the math yet. So this is something I want to keep a close eye on. I do think we've taken measures, as Councilmember Daniels explained, to try and work on that. But it's a very important issue. I just want to share, I was talking to a former Marine. He actually, he works with me. Maybe he won't want his name shared, so I won't share any more than that. But he was in the operations of the Marines, and at the end of a budget year, he was embarrassed to share this, but at the end of a budget year, they would literally take the planes and fly them in the air, as many as they could get off the ground, and burn as much fuel as fast as they could. And in fact, sometimes it would be so bad, and he was particularly embarrassed about this, they would take fuel and dump it out over the ocean. And in his opinion, 20% of the budget could probably be cut if you could get at that waste. But he says, you know what? We were worried. We were worried if we didn't spend it this year, they would hold us to a smaller budget based on our actual expenditures. And so we are getting at that issue, but I can't emphasize how important it is. We don't want any waste at all. I'm sure we don't have anything near that scale of problem in Gilbert, but it's just kind of the nature of the beast, and we need to keep a close eye on it. And so again, I applaud the efforts that have been taken. I think we are moving in the right direction. I do think there may be some more fine-tuning yet on that.
Councilmember Cook?
All right, here's a question more about forecasting. So when I go through what I would consider the adjusted budget numbers for both revenue and expenses, I would say we forecasted in the general fund right around $1.2 million. But when you go back and look at the actuals, we're nearly $16 million in the black. based upon what I see here in the general fund on this spreadsheet that you shared with me. So I guess, help me understand, again, as we forecast, we're about, $15 million, a little bit off on our forecasting. I'm glad it's that much in the black, but, how do we improve that part of our understanding of our future?
Mayor, Councilmember Cook, I would address that in a couple of different ways, actually. First of all, we're always looking for ways that we can improve on our forecasting, engaging experts in terms of economists and not just locally and regionally, but even nationally to take a look at those trends on the revenue side of things. And absolutely, our sales tax in particular came in much higher than what we would have anticipated at the beginning of the year. We also, though, you talk about forecasting, and budgeting is a little bit different, and that's where we go back to discussing the way that we budget for positions. So we want to make sure that we have the legal authority for every department to have each position for 100% of the year, knowing that throughout the time we're going to have those vacancies. So we've budgeted 100%, but we've not forecasted 100% of those. So that's part of the difference there. The other is, well, we were budgeting for ongoing revenues, with the exception of the one-time revenues that we were going to apply towards expenses this year. And we did so knowing that any peaks that we saw, for example, in development services, should we have a peak in development, the peaks in those revenues that are beyond the level of sustainable could be then applied towards one-time expenses in the following or any subsequent years. So we've budgeted at the ongoing level, we've budgeted our personnel at the 100% level. Our forecasts are done a little bit differently. But yes, we will always continue to try and fine-tune and improve those.
Thank you. Any other comments? Appreciate the comments. And now to the council, the motion that would be considered is whether or not to accept the budget report.
I motion that we accept the budget report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Please vote. There's anticipation. It's coming.
We need... Councilmember Ray.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Oh, there it is. Okay. Budget accepted. Thank you. The budget report accepted. Agenda item 37, boards, commissions, and committees. Any reports? Councilmember Daniels.
Mayor, just real quick, I wanted to thank the Operation Welcome Home Committee and town staff. I think that was another great event. And last night we had the privilege of having a meal with many of our honorees. All of them were invited, but not all could be there. And we were able to have a special announcement with them, and that is that they have all been invited to be the Grand Marshals of the Gilbert Days Parade this year. So we're thrilled to have them and their participation, and it'll be a perfect red, white, and blue tie-in to have those individuals be our Grand Marshals. So thanks for everyone's support.
Thank you. Other? That is very exciting. Saturday, November 23rd, 9 a.m. Okay, Councilmember Cook.
Well, this morning, I was with the chamber, and that's the liaison there, and we were actually having that meeting at Orbital Sciences this morning. And that team at Orbital Science is just a rock star for us here in Gilbert. They were showing us the new satellite constellation and the amount of work that they're doing, and there are new jobs that they're going to be generating, and it really is going to be a showcase. As we talk about being the satellite capital of the world, well, it was clear to me that we are that. So,
good. Thank you. Future meetings. Councilmember Ray invited us to the Mayor's Breakfast for the Arts next Tuesday morning. And then we'll have other council meetings. November 7th will be the next one. Study session. Yes, we have November 5th, study session. Okay. Agenda item 39, report from town manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I did check with Town Attorney Mike Hamblin. He said I could not report on the Cardinals beating the Red Sox tonight and evening the World Series, so I will not. I would.
Now, what was the score? The score that you can't report on?
I heard it was 4-2.
Okay.
It was 4-2. Rumor has it. But I would like to recognize our Development Services Department. They won an award for design of the Chandler Heights and Greenfield intersection from the American Council of Engineering Companies of Arizona, and we will bring them to a future council meeting to have them formally recognized. It was recognized for safety improvements, improved traffic circulation, bridge crossing, regional drainage, and redundancy in the reclaimed water network. And then also, lastly, I would like to recognize Mayor Lewis, who was the AZ Bio Public Service Leader of the Year Award. He was just recognized a couple weeks ago, so congratulations on that, Mayor.
Thank you. Agenda item 39, no, excuse me, 40, report from members of the Council on Current Events.
Mayor Lewis, I was particularly impressed with a story I heard today about 3 of our Public Works employees who witnessed a hit-and-run accident and were able to quickly take a picture of the offender, and that person was arrested a short time thereafter, and so they were both able to assist the individual that was hit and then also help our police solve a crime. I think it's one more evidence of the great working relationship that our departments and our staff have with each other, and that all are willing to serve the community in that capacity. And so appreciate that efforts. I was particularly impressed with that. And Patrick stole my thunder because I was going to talk about you getting that award. So congratulations, Mayor.
Thank you. Then I better take a hold of this agenda quickly and get to number 41. The 2 or 3 things I mentioned, then we'll close. Regional meetings. This week there was a GPEC Healthcare Leadership Council in Paunch, who we know as one of our great Arizona State University representatives, spoke very highly of Gilbert in that meeting to all the healthcare executives in the Valley, and we thank Paunch for that. At the MAG meeting, and I wish I would have brought the numbers, but one presentation at the Executive Council meeting was the number of foreclosures in 2009 versus today is incredible as to how many fewer foreclosures we have, and so it's been a great trend. And I think on behalf of so many citizens in the Valley, and especially in Gilbert, we still have a lot of challenges, and yet it was very positive to see that the number of foreclosures was way down. And then this morning, I was able to represent Gilbert at a Sevrar meeting where they had all of the communities in the East Valley make presentations to a large group of realtors. And in this case, I opened the umbrella to say some great things are happening in every community in East Valley, and a lot of positives. Each community has some announcements that are right at the edge, and Gilbert has some too that we're anxious to bring out shortly, but a very positive time for the East Valley. And on that note, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
It's not 2:15. I thought we were going to go for the record tonight. Jinx it, Mike.